this video, I'm going to cover how to see Utah's best national parks and a number of other great attractions along the way.
Prepare to see some incredible arches, experience iconic canyons, and take in some of the world's most amazing views.
I'll map out an itinerary that runs for just over 1 week, along with some other suggestions to extend your time should you have it.
I visited in 2018, and I still rave about it. While this is an aggressive itinerary that covers nearly 1,000 miles, you won't regret it after experiencing it. Here's an overview of what to expect. To keep this trip simple, I recommend arriving and departing through Salt Lake City. First, head to Moab for 3 nights to experience countless arches and expansive views at Arches and Canyonlands National Parks. From there, head south to the Navajo Nation to spend a day visiting the famous Monument Valley. Afterwards, take the next day to experience 2 highlights near Page, Arizona, Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend. You'll return to Utah to take the next few days in Springdale to tour Zion, followed by heading north to see Bryce before returning to Salt Lake City.
Stick around to the end. I'll tell you about a place where the bison roam overlooking the Great Salt Lake. Once you've arrived in Salt Lake City, take the 4-hour drive to Moab. Before getting settled, I recommend taking in the sunset at Dead Horse Point State Park. You'll walk along ledges that tower 2,000 feet above the Colorado River, providing a breathtaking panorama of the Canyonlands' sculpted pinnacles and buttes. You'll also catch a glimpse of the potash evaporation pools that offer vivid complementary colors of blue pools against the orange landscape. Plan to spend your first full day in Arches National Park. While it's a relatively small park, it has an awful lot to see and can become very crowded. From April 1st to October 31st, you'll need a timed ticket to enter between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. Outside of those times, you'll be able to get in just with your park pass. I'd recommend starting at Double Arch or the Windows. Both destinations use the same parking area and are often filled up later in the day. If you're up for it, doing sunrise here is a great option.
While exploring, one of the things I love about this area is that the formations from a certain angle will look like a herd of elephants. Make sure to also check out Turret Arch. When done, I suggest a quick tour of the Garden of Eden, and then if it's not too busy, visit Balanced Rock while you're close. From there, I recommend heading to the back of the park to visit Devil's Garden Trail. Note that the Sand Dune Arch is also a great stop along the way. At the Devil's Garden Trail, you'll find a relatively quick 2-mile trip to see a number of arches. This includes the famous Landscape Arch, the longest sandstone span at 290 feet. To see Double O Arch, you'll need to continue a total of 7.8 miles. I'd recommend passing on that and instead doing the full 3.2-mile hike to Delicate Arch, arguably one of the most famous geological features in the world. For sunset, you can elect to stay at the Delicate Arch or beat the crowds out to see it closer at the park's exit, at the Courthouse Towers, or La Salle Mountains viewpoint. The park is only 10 minutes from Moab, and you can always get dinner and come back later to see the night sky. Here's a reference map that features all the attractions I've discussed in sequential order. Your last day in Moab will be dedicated to seeing the north sides of Canyonlands National Park, known as the Island in the Sky District due to the cliffs on all sides. Try to make it out to Mesa Arch before sunrise. Up to an hour beforehand is required to secure parking. After getting pictures of the famous site, take the rest of the morning exploring the Upheaval Dome by way of the trail to the first and second overlook. This is about 2.5 miles round trip. Marvel at the rock formation that geologists are stumped by. Theories include being caused by a salt dome or from a meteorite. Next, stop over at the Green River Overlook for a quick view or plan to return for sunset. Your next hike is over at Grand View Point Overlook. This is not to be missed. It's about a 2-mile round trip and offers views of Junction Butte and the convergence of the Colorado and Green Rivers. Beyond that, take the balance of your day stopping at various other overlooks, such as Buck Canyon and Schaefer Trail viewpoints. Here's a reference map that features all the attractions that I've discussed. If you have extra time in Moab, consider a number of tours that range from off-roading to whitewater rafting. You may also want to consider making reservations, as dining options can fill up quickly. The next day involves heading south to experience the iconic Monument Valley. Along the way, you'll have a few options on how to spend your time. The southern part of Canyonlands National Park is called the Needles, after a series of red and white eroded sandstone pillars. Note that if you elect to visit this part of the park, it will add nearly 2.5 hours to your drive, given its remote location.
When leaving Moab, make sure that you have a full tank of gas. Note that if you decide to tour the Needles, you won't have a whole lot of time unless you decide to camp overnight in the park.
During my trip, I went out to Big Springs Canyon Overlook and did a half-mile hike around Pothole Point Trail. Other highlights include seeing the Needles and a wooden shoe rock formation. Another attraction includes stopping at Goosenecks State Park. It's a $5 admission fee and it's very close to the main road. It offers a great view of the Colorado River as it cuts through the mountains. Also, on the way, don't forget to stretch your legs at the iconic highway from Forrest Gump. Monument Valley is in the Navajo Nation Reservation, right on the border between Arizona and Utah. There aren't a lot of lodging options, and while you pay a premium to stay there, the View Hotel is a perfect location. Just make sure to book far in advance. Once you arrive to Monument Valley, plan for 2 hours to complete the 17-mile loop. The road is fairly rough as it weaves through the formations, but accessible with a standard rental car. My visit did not disappoint. It was a special place to see the majestic sandstone formations towering over the desert floor, some exceeding 1,000 feet. The passing clouds framed the views and cast contrasting shadows. All this was further mesmerizing as the light changed throughout the day. On your 5th day, you'll experience some of Arizona's must-see attractions. I recommend driving 2 hours to Horseshoe Bend first. It is about a mile hike and you won't need over 30 minutes for pictures. The view from the canyon's rim does not disappoint. Next, take the short drive to the city of Page for lunch and to meet with your Antelope Canyon tour operator. The Upper Antelope Canyon tour should be booked months in advance. I'd recommend a time in the middle of the day. Note that only between April and September will the light beams be visible on the floor of the canyon. Regardless, it's a great experience not to be missed. While you should expect to see a lot of crowds, the guides will move people along fairly efficiently and share some information along the way about the Native American culture in the region. Note that you'll have a chance to stop periodically to take pictures on the way in, but not on the way back, so make it count. From there, I'd recommend driving another 2 hours to Springdale, unless you are fortunate enough to get a chance to see the wave, which would require staying an overnight in the area. To do so, you need to win a lottery for an access permit. The trek is 6 miles out and back and is of moderate difficulty. Other options to extend your time include touring Glen Canyon Dam or taking an extra 3 hours to drive to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. That said, I think you'll be happier visiting the Grand Canyon on another trip from the south rim. Plan on staying 2 nights in Springdale. Parking is extremely limited in this area, so you'll want a hotel that offers it. To enter the park, you can walk, you can take the shuttle, or you can park your car at the visitor center. Just note that it may fill up by mid-morning. Only between December and February are you able to drive through the park. You'll likely need to take the shuttle otherwise. Your first decision should be made well in advance of your trip. Will you hike Angel's Landing? Doing so requires a permit that is awarded months in advance or is part of a daily lottery. Considered by many to be one of the more dangerous hikes in the national park system, this strenuous 4-hour hike ascends 1,500 feet and is not well suited for those with a fear of heights. For those that do undertake it though, the views are incredible. For everyone else, consider dedicating around 4 hours to the Emerald Pools Trail. Start at the Zion Lodge and wrap up around the Angel's Landing trailhead. The 4 hours includes the additional 2-hour hike to the Upper Falls, which has a moderate difficulty rating. Both of these pools offer beautiful waterfalls. Once finished, take the shuttle to the Temple of Sinawaba to do the Riverside Walk. If you have an extra day, you can consider wading through the Virgin River. From this point on, the trek is known as the Narrows. This activity can exceed 8 hours and is weather dependent due to flash flooding risks. At certain points, the width may be only 20 feet, with the walls exceeding 1,000. Otherwise, to finish the day, I suggest walking the last part back to the park entrance along the Riverside Trail. This easy paved trail offers beautiful views of the surrounding mountains while you walk along the river. For the next morning, plan to take the Pine Creek Canyon Overlook hike before leaving Zion. As you depart along Highway 9, parking is immediately after getting through the tunnel. The trail is rated as modestly difficult and is an adventure as you follow along a trail that hugs the mountainside. It also doesn't hurt that it offers a great view of the valley at the end. Plan for about an hour to do the mile round-trip trail. Finally, make sure to pull over to see the checkerboard mesa before you leave the park. As a general rule, I recommend stopping at attractions along the way as you see them. That way you can plan to finish the day at the back end of the park. Because shuttles will fill up in the afternoon, this will put you in a good position to be able to get a spot. Upon leaving Zion, plan for a 2-hour drive to Bryce Canyon National Park. Once you arrive, try to see as many of the vantage points along the rim as you can. Consider wrapping up at Sunset Point. Accommodations are quite limited and can be found just outside the park, as well as near the town of Tropic, just to the east. I recommend booking for 2 nights and checking out the Stone Canyon Inn. It also features a great restaurant. If the weather isn't cooperating for a great sunset, consider doing the Mossy Cave Trail. It's along the way to Tropic, and it's a great way to finish the day with a waterfall. Your next day is fully dedicated to Bryce Canyon National Park. Start at Sunrise Point and then head to the canyon along Queen's Garden Trail. Plan to wrap up along Wall Street, which is one of my favorite parts of the hike. The hike is about a 500-foot gain and 2.2 miles, and it will take about an hour to complete. If you're feeling more ambitious, you can undertake the 3-hour loop below the rim on the Fairyland Loop Trail. It's a 1,200-foot elevation gain and features the Tower Bridge. Otherwise, take the balance of your time touring the other overlooks, especially the one at Rainbow Point. Another option is to go horseback riding. The going rate is around $75 to $100, and that will get you about 2 to 3 hours. For your last day, I recommend heading back to Bryce for sunrise. Fairyland Point is a great alternative to Sunrise Point. Here's a reference map that features all of the attractions I've discussed in sequential order. The drive back to Salt Lake City will take about 4 hours. If you have interest in seeing all of Utah's 5 national parks, you can take an additional 90 minutes and go out of your way to stop at Capitol Reef National Park. With about 2 hours, you would have enough time to complete the Hickman Bridge Trail that features a natural bridge and petroglyphics, tour the Fruta Barn where you can pick fruit if it's in season, and take in some great views at Sunset Point. As promised, I want to put a plug in for an optional excursion that can be done upon arrival or at time of departure from Salt Lake City. Antelope Island is just north of the city and offers a chance to experience the Great Salt Lake, which may be gone in as soon as 5 years. As you drive around, you'll likely see herds of bison grazing freely about. If you can stay late, it's also wonderful to see the sunset over the lake. This is an incredible way to wrap up an action-packed week. I recommend going between either March and May or September and November. The winters are cold and some parks will have snow. The summers are to be avoided. The parks are quite crowded and the heat will definitely slow you down. As for a budget, I would recommend provisioning between $3,200 and $4,700 for 2 people over 8 nights. One thing that you can do to save some money is to eat on the go. To do so, stop at a grocery store upon arrival to stock up. Let me know in the comments if you've had a chance to visit some of Utah's national parks. I'd love to hear what you thought about them and whether I've missed anything. Make sure to check out my other videos on where to go next. If this wasn't the perfect trip for you, stay tuned. Hopefully the next one will be.